thing that I wish that I had done earlier, and we kind of touched on this, was pushed myself to grow through community and also competition. So, what I mean by that is surrounding yourself with, um, creative photographer friends, people who are, um, either doing what you're doing or doing what you aspire to do, learning from them, like being involved in the community. So for me, initially, it was when I joined the Professional Photographers of Canada. Suddenly, I had this like whole network of people because, by the nature of what we do, we usually work alone, maybe with an assistant or whatever, but it feels very alone. And then the only people that you kind of know maybe are people who view you as their competition. They're in your area. It's like they're friends, but are they really? Kind of like a little frenemy vibe happening, and it just felt like kind of like I just never really liked it. So I always kind of stayed away from that. And then when I joined the association, I was really surprised at how helpful people were, how welcoming they were, and how much you felt like you were lifting each other up. And that sort of started that for me. And the competitions that I started entering because of that just pushed me to a completely different level. Because before I started competing, I was only making work that I was getting paid for, right? So it was just my client work. And when I started competing, I knew like client work, it's good, but it's not like, blow you away. Like you need to impress photography judges. They're not going to be that impressed by, a nice portrait of someone. So, yeah, it put me into creating work that was out of the usual for me. And I just learned so much new stuff, and it helped my business grow a lot because I started mastering Photoshop on a completely new level, and yeah, so joining the association was probably the best thing that I ever did for my business as far as pushing me forward and out of sort of the status quo that I've been kind of stuck in, I think, for a while.
So, Victoria, you've touched on something that I see a lot, right? And this idea of, as creatives, we need time. We need to create time for ourselves to be creative, right? And that's different than when we're photographing to sell or to capture those images of, whether it's women in your case, or families, or newborn, whatever it is, in a way that connects with the relationships that we're photographing, whether that's with oneself or whether it's with a family or with others. So can you just talk to that? Was that something that you always knew, or did that come from when you joined the association, that you learned that people, created time to be creative for competition, which is different than when you're creating art for sale?
Yeah. Well, first of all, not everyone does that. Some people just enter, what they're doing for work. Usually those people don't do that well, though. Usually, not all of them. I can think of a few, but they're fine art photographers, right? So the fine art photographers can enter their fine art, everyday images. But for those of us who do a lot of like business portraits and stuff, that it's not really going to cut it. So for me, I had never even considered myself a creative person, which is so funny because now everybody wants me to teach about being creative. But I really just thought I was an average photographer with good business skills for a long time. And then when I joined the association, but I'm a competitive person. I like to do well. I don't want to fail. So I was like, all right, I just knew, I mean, you can look at any competition, any photography competition, and you can look at what's winning and recognize when your stuff is not, on par. So I'm like, all right, I need to come up with ideas. I need to, push myself. And that that started there. And now I totally understand the importance of creating, for yourself. Being creative is not the same as running a photography business. I actually completely think that my art and my business are two totally different things at this point. But ironically, like the stuff that I won with and the stuff that has all the awards, even though it's not my client work, my clients, they don't differentiate, right? They're like, oh, she's amazing. She's amazing. So I'm going to her. She's the best. But it's not like I was awarded for what I was doing for them necessarily, right? But it doesn't matter. Um, and you will hear some people saying, like, oh, well, what they're doing in competition isn't even, the same, but it does trickle down because the edits that I'm capable of doing now are so much more advanced than what I was able to do before I started, pushing my skills forward. For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, I do a lot of really highly composited creative work, which is why I said that I became a lot better at Photoshop.